Hi everyone, in today's tactics video I'm going to provide some tips and hints on the shooting phase. Written from the perspective of an Astra Militarum commander, this phase is obviously very important to us, given this where the vast majority of our damage is done in our shooting focused army. I've done a similar video on the deployment phase and we'll do others on the other phases of the game, so make sure you subscribe to watch those when they're released. Right, so let's kick off with Mathammer and pre-planning. 40k is a dice game, so luck and probability play a role. The way to mitigate this is a basic understanding of averages and factoring this into your play. If, for example, you wanted to destroy a squad of 5 primary space marines, knowing that a single mortar squad with 3 tubes is highly unlikely to do so, means you'll be also planning to put a basilisk into them as well. Knowing the destructive ability of your units and the inherent survivability of your opponent's units means you'll be able to plan out your turn more effectively. Mathammer doesn't have to be complicated, simply knowing that hitting on 4s is less likely to hit than hitting on 3s, with the same logic applied to the wound roll and your opponent's saving throw. You want to be able to do this quite quickly, and ideally you are pre-planning this in your opponent's turn. Being guilty of this, you shouldn't be just chilling, empty-mindedly rolling your saving throws, but thinking about what you're going to do in your next turn. If math isn't a natural strength of yours, just think it through step by step. With our 3 mortar team example, shooting it to 5 primary space marines, start with a number of shots being d6 each. Being super simple, assume you then have 3 each, so 9 in total. Then given you've got the blast keyword, it's an additional 1 each, so that's 12 shots in total. Now again, assuming you're shooting with direct line of sight into the target, you'll be hitting on 4s if you're remaining stationary, so that's a 50% chance, which is now 12 shots becomes an average of 6 hits. Then use the same thinking for the wound roll, where you're wounding on 3s, so a 66% chance, which becomes 4 wounds of the 6 hits. Then given your opponent is saving on 3s, means they're probably going to save 3 of the 4, meaning you've done a grand total of 1 wound in total. With this knowledge, you would then be planning to put your basilisk into it as well. Widening this then out to the wider game, you can better set up your units to be applying fire to those that need to be destroyed, or move blocking a high threat target from advancing too much. Again, being simple, if you know you need to destroy 2 enemy units, but need to get 6 of your units to apply direct fire onto them, then obviously you need to set this up in your preceding movement phase. One caveat on Mathammer is that averages don't always play out. We've all seen the dice spike both ways, and I've had games where I couldn't honestly roll above a 1 or 2 for the entire game, and likewise games where I've rolled more 6s than I could dream of. To quote the comedy movie starring Will Ferrell,
they've done studies, 60% of the time it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
Okay, next tip is start with those units who have the least choice to shoot first. Like everything in life, the choices we make have consequences, with every in-game decision affecting your chances of winning the match. Given there can be a lot of decisions to make, reducing these decisions is a way to lessen the mental load on you as a player. If, for example, an infantry squad can only see 1 target, then its decision-making process there is pretty straightforward. Now, if you had a Titanic unit on the other end of the scale, which could see multiple units, then clearly there's a bit more to think about when it comes to that big model. Relating to this Titanic model example, if you've got high unit cost models like a Titanic one in your army list, then you obviously want to make sure it's paying back its points, so choosing what it targets is vitally important. Okay, so next is putting the right weapons into the right target. Perhaps obvious, but ensure you are using the weapon for its intended purpose. On 2 ends of the spectrum, let's explore a single-shot Vanquisher battle cannon and the before-mentioned mortar team. Putting the Vanquisher battle cannon into a 20-man squad of Chaos Cultists isn't advisable when you could be using the mortar team with its blast keyword and d6 shots. Likewise, firing a mortar into a toughness 10 vehicle isn't advisable if you had the Vanquisher battle cannon as an option. So that's obvious, but a bit more advanced aspect of this is matching the damage profile of a weapon to the wound count of the target. If, for example, you've got a 3 wound enemy model, need the choice between a 2 damage Basilisk or 3 damage Manticore, the Manticore will be the preference. Simple reason for this is it takes 1 Manticore shot to kill a model versus 2 for the Basilisk, meaning you're actually putting in 4 damage into a 3 wound model and being inefficient with your damage output. Of course, you need to factor in the strength of the weapon and its AP into the equation, but principally this is a good way to think. Now, taking this even further, let's talk about sequencing the order of your shots into a target. Earlier I spoke about starting with those that have only 1 target to shoot at, but if the target has been hit by multiple units of ours, then make sure you're clever with which order you shoot first. For example, let's go back to the 3 wound target model. If we had to put in a 2 damage Basilisk and we only had that choice, and end up leaving 1 model with only a single wound, you could pick it off with some damage weapons like las guns or mortars. This is really well illustrated with a multi-weapon model like a Lemon Russ. Let's pretend you've got a battle cannon with its flat 3 damage, heavy bolter in the front sponson, and side sponson plasma cannons with a 2 damage option. And then of course you've got a heavy stubber on top with its 1 damage output. Here the logical order would be to target the same unit with a battle cannon, hopefully wiping out single models first, and the 2 damage plasma cannons and heavy bolters, leaving potentially one of those models on a single wound for the heavy stubber to pick off. As clarification, the wrong order would be the plasma cannons and heavy bolters, then the battle cannon, given you'll be killing off a model with 2 damage from the plasma cannon, and then 3 damage from the battle cannon, so wasting 2 damage of the battle cannon. Now, of course, if you're shooting into a model with loads of wounds like a vehicle, then just plow everything into it in any order, given there's no chance of wasting damage. Okay, now to some more simple tips. Overwatch with the right unit. Being able to overwatch in both your opponent's movements or the charge phase presents great opportunity for shooting focus armies like Astra Militarum. Now, it's very important to make sure you don't waste this opportunity on a unit which has little chance of actually doing anything in Overwatch. As a general rule of thumb, bigger is always better in the sense of using a vehicle which has got plenty of guns on it, with the absolute preference being flamers for those auto hits. Needing 6s to hits are terrible odds, and even when used on vehicles with plenty of shots, it can always be quite disappointing with a small amount of actual hits happening. Make sure you only overwatch when it will make a difference or when they've got plenty of CP to spend. Do remember to apply the principle of sequencing your shots according to damage type. You could come across scenarios where you've got a multi-wound unit with multiple wounds each model, and one of them's only got 1 wound remaining, meaning just a single lasgun or heavy stubber could chip away and kill off the model. In this case, there could be merit to an infantry squad fighting Overwatch, given you've just got to pick off 1 wound with a lasgun. Alright, now onto a golden rule, being don't lengthen your charges. If you plan to charge a unit in the following charge phase, don't make your job harder by shooting at the units you wish to do so. Now this firmly applies to infantry style targets, as a decent opponent will kill off the models closest to you, hence lengthening the charge. Obviously, if the target to be charged is a monster or vehicle with multiple wounds, then it's okay to shoot at it, as long as you don't kill it outright. That's where important to apply some in-game Mathammer, knowing for example, that if it's okay to fire an infantry squad into a Rhino, but not a Lemon Russ Demolisher. Okay, very last is the unique order system for Astra Militarum, the use of relevant stratagems and unit abilities. Being a ballistic score 4+ army, Guard have and will always be very swingy. The take aim order is so important to give Guard a chance of actually hitting anything. While it's obvious, something that happens in the command phase, this video wouldn't be complete without spending a bit on orders. The current order system is pretty restrictive in that it can only issue 1 order to each unit. We had a brief spell in the back end of 9th edition, being able to splash orders across multiple units, and it was very easy to issue them out. But now you've got to be super careful which you give orders to. Again, a general rule of thumb is bigger is always better. Or said, another way is to improve the damage output of your heavy hitters, as opposed to those that can't do much damage. This, of course, will vary in-game, but if you had, for example, the choice of ordering a Limon Russ or an infantry squad by Lord Solar, then hopefully the decision is pretty obvious. And now, unit ability-wise, again, not technically an in-game decision. Make sure you are fielding units that can boost shooting output of other units. Two quick examples are the Scout Sentinel, which can give out rerolled hits of 1, and also able to allow indirect weapons to ignore the penalty for indirect. The other example is Exterminated Autocannon Lemon Rust Battle Tank, giving the subsequent units an additional pip of AP. Maximise the damage potential of your units by enabling these units to stack their rolls onto an enemy unit you need destroyed. Again, make sure you sequence things so that these shoot first and that other units get the benefit of their abilities. It's easy to forget these type of things in the heat of the game, but do your best to always remember. Now, feeding off this is your use of stratagems. And the Astra Militarum suite of stratagems has got 3 which can boost our shooting outputs, being Fields of Fire, Suppression Fire, and Expert Bombardiers. Fields of Fire is always a favourite, giving you an additional point of AP. So again, make sure you are sequencing its use first and using a chaff unit to set it off, like an infantry squad or a mortar. So all your big guns that fire afterwards have got the benefit of additional AP. Okay, very last is split firing. This is best avoided as a typical rule of thumb, as to do so you end up destroying pretty much nothing. Particularly in a low ballistic skill army like Astra Militarum, you've got to always overcompensate for the dice in case it goes the wrong way and is quite tough on you. Maybe tempting to have your Lemon Rush shooting at multiple targets, as that's cool and probably what realistic would happen in the battlefield. But would you prefer to overkill one unit or partially wound off several and have all of them left alive after it? Alright, so some tips and hints on the best phase of shooting phase. What do you think of my pointers? And let me know in the comments. And if you've got any neat tricks or mental frameworks you use in the shooting phase, please share them in the comments as well. I do always read the comments and learn a lot from you, so please get commenting. If you want to support my channel, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing, simply watching any of my other YouTube videos, or joining my Patreon platoon. A massive thanks to my current supporters. To keep your bayonet sharp, lasgun oiled, faith from the Emperor strong, Patreon platoon, sound off.
Tank Commander Glenn, Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Tank Commander Mitchell, Lieutenant Burke Nielsen, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill, Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin, Conscript England, Gillian, Goodwin, King.